And the phone just lit up, and I saw Nashville, Tennessee was calling. And that means that conversation that I promised you is here. Bill Anderson, good morning, and welcome back to Classic Country Radio.
Well, I tell you what, it's great to be back, and I want a ticket to all of those shows I just heard you talking about, and a copy of Joe's DVD. How do I go about getting one?
Well, you just come on up here, and we'll get a limo, and you and I will make the rounds together. You may want to wait a couple of months to do that, though, because we're having the roughest winter we've had around here since '78.
Well, I've talked to several people up there over the last couple of months or so, and that's what I hear every time I talk to people up in southern Ohio. They say, boy, it's really been a rough and long winter. We've been able to dodge most of that in Nashville. We had some cold temperatures, but the snow and ice has stayed either to the north or the south of us so far, and that's just fine with me.
We just had another go-round with it last night and into this morning. So I've been doing. I sound like a guy on the Motor Racing Network talking about where the accidents are. You know, but we've had more snow around here this year than a party at Charlie Sheen's house. I mean it.
I like that.
It's been that year. Bill, there's been a lot of excitement around here over the last couple of weeks. For many years, I have been a player in promoting veterans and better care for veterans. It's been my good fortune to been named a Veterans Advocate of this area by a veterans organization a couple of those years. And so I'm in touch with these people all the time. Of course, this is really the heartland of America. This area is full of great patriotic citizens. And this cut from your new album, Life, Old Army Hat, has really touched a chord. I bet you're hearing that from a lot of places.
Well, I really am, Bucks. Thank you. People are telling me that it reminds them of their grandfathers, their fathers, their brothers, their uncles, and people like that that served in the Second World War, which this song is about. And, I've always thought country music was really kind of designed to communicate thoughts and feelings among people. And when I'm able to come up with a song and a record that people say really makes them feel something or remember some special people or special times in their lives, then that's very important to me. And to be able to stand up and say something positive about our great country is always something that's very high on my list of priorities as well. So thank you guys for playing the record. I really appreciate it. And my thanks to all the American Legions and the VFWs and all the men and women of those great organizations who have spoken up and said they like this record.
I was talking to a friend of mine earlier this morning who was an online listener in Keokuk, Iowa. And in the middle of the conversation, he said, "Oh, I have an old Navy hat in a chest."
Well, I didn't mean to. I'm certainly in no way excluding the Navy or the Marines or the Air Force or anybody. This story just happened to be about an Army, a guy who was in the United States Army. But if somebody wants to substitute and say old Navy hat, that's fine with me.
Well, yeah, all the veterans from who served in so many different ways you've been calling, they all just identify this so well. The one of them who was really excited about it is a gentleman named Mr. Brown, 90 years old this year, a Normandy veteran. He calls here often. So plugged in and excited about current events. You'd enjoy a conversation with him sometime. You talk about a live wire, but he loves this. He says it just brings back so many memories.
Well, it's actually a true story, and the man that it was written about also turned 90 years old this year.
Wow.
He lives down in a little town called Millington, Tennessee, just a little bit north of Memphis. And his service in the Second World War was mostly over in the Pacific. And he's shown me pictures of him, as a young man, as a soldier with members of his platoon and various things. So when I heard about his story, about him going to Washington, having his son take him up there to see the World War II memorial, and the fact that he insisted on wearing that old Army hat, I thought, boy, that's a country song in the making if I ever heard one.
I was on Honor Flight a couple of years ago, accompanied a group of WW2 veterans, and there was one of the fellas. He was in his early 90s. He could still wear his uniform, and he had he had that uniform on at the memorial. It was something to see, and the same kind of reaction, the way people honored him for it. Nobody thought it looked silly.
Well, there were things that I couldn't even put into this song that actually happened when this gentleman, his name is Ed Haley, when Mr. Haley actually went to Washington. His son told me that when they got out of the cab at the hotel after flying into the airport there, that the bellman at the hotel, big fancy hotel in downtown Washington, opened the back door of the cab for them to get out. And when he saw Mr. Haley get out with that old Army hat on his head, said the bellman backed up about 3 steps and saluted and held the salute until Mr. Haley got out of the cab. And they said as they walked through the lobby of the hotel on their way just to check in that the same reaction. People were passing by and saying, "Thank you, soldier," and this kind of thing. It just, it just kind of renews your faith in humanity and mankind and your spirit and all. And then I got the most beautiful letter from Senator Bob Dole, who, of course, was one of the guiding forces behind the creation of the World War II Memorial. And he had heard my song on the Grand Ole Opry, actually, and just wrote me a letter thanking me for it. So this song has touched a lot of people and continues to, and that's very gratifying to me.
Bob Dole's a heck of a man. The day that I was at the memorial with the Honor Flight people was a Saturday, and he was there. He looked frail, but he stood out there in a kind of a chilly wind and talked to those veterans until the last one had their say and conversation with him. He was out there a good 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he invited me. He put on there, he said, if you can ever come up here, please let me know. I'd love to take you out to the memorial and give you a personal tour and so forth. That just meant so much to me. It really, really did.
Now, you met this gentleman and heard his story, and that's how the song came about.
Absolutely. I heard the story, and then the local newspaper in his hometown wrote a story about him and all, and I took all of that and showed it to a friend of mine, a great songwriter who lives down in Alabama named Walt Aldridge, and I just felt like Walt would be a perfect person to understand this. He's an older guy, and he had his father and some of his relatives and all fought in the Second World War. And I said, Walt, you're just the perfect person to help me write this song, because the hard part of it was just condensing it down and telling the story and getting the part in there about the little boy coming up to him. And that really happened. The little boy came up and asked if he could put on his old Army hat, and then Mr. Haley ended up giving him the hat. He wouldn't even take it back. And how do you tell that? You got to do it in 3 or 4 minutes when you're writing a song.
Yeah.
not like writing it in a book. You've got restrictions. So Walt really contributed a lot and helped me write this song.
Well, it really hones in on it. It is like all great songs, and you have written so many over the years. It is a movie. You see everything in this song as you listen to it.
We did a little video on it. I don't know if you've seen it or not. You can see it on YouTube, or you can go to BillAnderson.com and pull it up. And we did a reenactment of the soldier going up to the monument and the little boy coming out and putting on his hat, and it's a pretty emotional thing. I was really proud of this when we got it done.
Well, let's listen to it right now. Had so many people call in through the morning and say to me, when Mr. Anderson is on with you, you're going to play that song again, aren't you? Yeah. So we are right now from the CD Life, Bill Anderson and Old Army Hat.
see a young man at the end of 45. Only one of 7 men in his platoon that made it back alive. He must have seen some tough times, but he never talked too much about all that. Put his pictures and his memories in the cedar chest. Everything but his old army hat. By the time I graduated, the winds of change had blown across our land. They were burning flags and draft cards when they bothered to take some kind of stand. And we used to laugh at Grandpa like he was some old relic from the past. 'Cause he never left the house lest he was wearing that funny-looking, worn-out army hat. Every eye was on him anytime that he went anywhere. They whispered and they pointed, but you could tell that Grandpa didn't care. I ain't wearing this for them, he said. It's a whole lot more than that. For my buddies who gave everything, the least that I can do is keep on wearing this old army hat. He called me up one morning, said he'd seen it on the news on his TV. They've opened up a monument to World War II in Washington, D.C. I ain't getting any younger, and I wish someone would take me to see that. I couldn't help but think they're gonna laugh at you up there if you show up in that silly army hat. 2 strangers both saluted as Grandpa walked up to the monument. One said, "Thank you, soldier, for a job well done." The other said, "Amen." And a young boy said, "Sir, my daddy went to war and never made it back. Would you take a picture standing here beside me? And maybe let me wear your army hat?" Every eye was on him, and there was not a dry one in the crowd. They whispered and they pointed, and Grandpa stood up extra tall and proud. He said, "Son, just keep it," when the young boy tried his best to give it back. "You're a brave little soldier, son, and every soldier needs his very own authentic army hat. For your daddy who gave everything, the least that I can do is pass on this old worn-out army hat." Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy brood with brotherhood from sea to shining sea, and crown thy good with brotherhood
Anderson with Old Army Hat from the album Life. What a hoot it must be for you to have yet another recording that is in such demand.
Well, people have been awful good to me over the years, and God bless them. They continue to bless me by being nice to songs I write and records that I try to make. I've been doing it for a long time, and I still love it, and to know that I can do something that people still enjoy thrills me beyond belief.
You're a consummate entertainer. You've done everything in show business. I noted the other night they began running that new series of reunion-type shows with you and Ricky Skaggs hosting and the people of Bluegrass.
I was really honored that Ricky wanted me to co-host that with him because, I mean, he's the consummate professional when it comes to bluegrass music and certainly an authority on it, much more so than I am, although I love it. They wanted to just have Ricky host it to start with, and he said, no, I want Bill to be there with me and kind of help direct traffic. But that was a fun thing. I heard stories from the bluegrass world that I had never heard. It's kind of like in country music, we have stories about some of the characters like Roger Miller and Grandpa Jones and various ones, but I had never heard some of the bluegrass stories, and I just sat there enthralled, not only with the stories, but the great music. What a terrific band they put together for that show, and I was just honored to be sitting there with them.
Well, we enjoy watching those reunion shows all the time. You mentioned Bluegrass Stories. I think it was Ronnie Stoneman was telling this story about Grandpa Jones, and they were sitting on the set of Hee Haw, and some of the Hee Haw honeys walked by, and Grandpa said to her, he said, if I looked that good walking, I'd walk everywhere I go. Oh, that's great.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for writing Old Army Hat and getting it out on this CD. And the CD, by the way, is just full of other wonderful cuts. But I'm of that generation that my dad was a World War II veteran. And, really everybody in America at that time was a World War II veteran because everybody pulled together. Kids went out and picked up tin, gave up having extra pairs of shoes. Everybody sacrificed and gave up something. The whole country pulled together in such a way that it truly was the greatest generation, and really has led the way for all of us who have followed. And this great rebirth we've seen in the last many years of patriotism in America after we got past Vietnam, and now have come to be able to praise and include those who served there so bravely and so courageously for the United States of America. And it all started with this greatest generation.
Well, I was a kid. I lived in Columbia, South Carolina, in the days during the Second World War. I was just a kid on the streets there, but I remember the things that you're talking about. There was an Army base called Fort Jackson right outside of Columbia, and the streets in Columbia were filled in those days with soldiers, and they were some of the first people that I kind of looked up to and admired, seeing them in their uniforms walking down the streets. And I remember things like gas rationing, and I remember we had the little coupons, and Mom could only buy a certain amount of sugar and a certain amount of butter at the stores, and the things. And you're right, it was a time of pulling together. And, you hate to think of something that horrible as the war being something that united us, and yet, in a way, I think it probably had the good effect of the fact that we all did pull together, and even though I watched it as a very young boy, I still remember the feelings of it all, and sometimes I almost wish that the current generation and people could feel some of the things that we felt and the united way that we felt during those days.
It was a a time in which we faced the greatest evil that the world has ever known, and proved to be its master, and proclaimed and spread this freedom of ours all over the world. We went through the Cold War years and the Iron Curtain and all of that, and that Iron Curtain's been sent out for scrap metal now, too. It's been a remarkable time, a remarkable ride these 70 years since WW2.
Well, we've been fortunate to have been blessed with the greatest country in the world. I've traveled just about everywhere. I haven't been to every part of the world, but I've been to most of them. And the one thing that is the greatest thing to see is when that plane lands and you're back home in the United States of America, and you see those stars and stripes waving in the breeze, and you just want to get down and kiss the ground and say, Lord, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but thank you for the blessing of being in this country. I
remember one trip came in through customs in Atlanta, and I got all choked up. The woman took my passport and looked up at me and said, "Welcome home, Mr. Braun." And I thought, "Oh man,
wow,
you really appreciate this country so much more when you go elsewhere and see how people live. People who not that there isn't big problems and poor folks that need some help around our nation now, but when you see some of the poverty abroad, the people who are classified as poor in this country would be middle class or above in a lot of other places."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we've certainly got a lot to be thankful for. We really do.
Well, you have put it so well, and in old Army hat, and said what so many have thought, and have really touched all of those who are veterans and those who love them, and hopefully that's the majority of the American people. I know it is.
Well, I believe it is too, and I thank you, Bucks. Thank you and all the guys there at the stations for playing not only that song, but for being so good to me down through the years. I remember fondly the day I got to come up and sit in there with you at the station when I was up to do the Cincinnati, Ohio song at the Reds game last summer, and you just rolled out the welcome mat for me, and you always have, and of course Joe and all the radio ramblers and everybody doing my song and things like that. It's I feel really close to you guys and your listeners, and I thank you for allowing me to feel that way.
Well, I was talking about this a little earlier. Some Kind of War is the most significant recording that Joe Mullins and the Radio Ramblers have made. It may turn out in the long run to be absolutely the most significant through their careers, because it allowed so much to happen for them, being with you on the Opry, and now the return visits there. So we feel real fond and real close to you. And then we've got the Cincinnati Reds connection. Why don't you, my son and I are going to Phoenix to spring training. Come on out and join us there.
Well, you know what? When are you going? Because I'm actually going to be in Phoenix next weekend.
Oh, really? We're going tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, wow. Well, get out there and bring them some good luck and have a lot of fun and enjoy the sunshine.
I'm sorry I'm missing you by a week, but come see us again anytime. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll come see you in Nashville again soon, too. I just love to be at the Opry when you're hosting. Your presence just takes over that stage, yet it's so comfortable. It's like visiting you in your own living room.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you. We've got a special weekend coming up at the Opry this weekend. This will be the 40th anniversary of our moving into the Grand Ole Opry House.
Mm-hmm.
I still want to call it the new Opry House. We've been there 40 years.
I still do the same thing. Yeah.
We're gonna celebrate that this weekend. I understand they've got some very special things lined up for the fans that are going to be there. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, excellent. Enjoy and keep writing those songs. And
I'll try, Bucks.
And singing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. See you soon.
Yes, sir. There is a Country Music Association Hall of Famer, a star, for 56 years now, and as nice a human being as you'll run into in any business, much less show business, Bill Anderson.